The fluorescent lights of Maxwell Blackwood's penthouse office hummed softly as the city slept below. Chicago's skyline glittered against the midnight sky, the endless lights reflecting off Lake Michigan like scattered diamonds. Inside, the man who commanded one of America's most powerful corporations sat alone, surrounded by success, yet consumed by emptiness. Maxwell Blackwood stared at the quarterly reports before him, the numbers blurring as exhaustion crept in. 53 years had carved deep lines around his eyes, silver threading through his once jet-black hair. His Italian suit, perfectly tailored, couldn't hide the weight that had settled onto his shoulders since that day 6 years ago. On his desk, beside stacks of contracts and acquisition plans, sat a silver pocket watch. Tarnished with age, its hands frozen at 3:42. Maxwell never wound it, never tried to make it work again. It remained as it had been the moment Emma's heart stopped beating. The phone rang, piercing the silence. Maxwell glanced at the clock. 2:17 a.m., his private line. Only 5 people had this number, and none would call at this hour unless something catastrophic had happened to Blackwood Enterprises. He lifted the receiver, voice sharp as steel. Blackwood. Silence greeted him, then a small intake of breath. What followed sent ice coursing through his veins. Hello, please. I need help. A child's voice, trembling and fragile. My mommy fell down and won't wake up. She's so cold. I'm scared. Maxwell's hand tightened around the receiver until his knuckles whitened. For a moment, he was thrown back 6 years to another call, another child's voice. Who is this? He demanded, fighting to keep his tone steady. How did you get this number? I'm Lily, the small voice quavered. I tried to call the emergency people, but my hands were shaking. Mommy always said to call 911, but I think I pressed wrong. Please, mister, my mommy won't move. She's getting colder. Please help us. The child's plea cut through years of carefully constructed defenses. Maxwell closed his eyes, seeing another little girl in his mind. Emma. Her final call, the one he'd been too busy to answer, trapped in a board meeting while his daughter bled alone. Where are you, Lily? His voice softened almost against his will. Apartment 3C, 1458, Westridge Avenue. The precision of her address surprised him. The building with the broken steps. Please hurry. Mommy is very cold now. Maxwell's finger hovered over the button that would summon emergency services. One press and his involvement would end. The logical choice. The safe choice, but the silver watch caught his eye, its hands eternally marking the moment his world ended. The moment he hadn't been there. Stay with your mother, Lily. I'm coming. He pressed the intercom instead. Vincent, bring the car around. Now. Vincent Chen appeared within minutes, his usually impeccable appearance slightly disheveled from being summoned from sleep. The head of security for Blackwood Enterprises had served Maxwell for 15 years, ever since Maxwell had found the former Special Forces operator working as a nightclub bouncer. Sir, Vincent's expression remained neutral, but his eyes held questions. Westridge Avenue, the old apartment complex near Roosevelt Road. Vincent's eyebrows rose slightly. That's not a safe area, especially at this hour. May I ask the purpose? Maxwell grabbed his coat, the silver watch, sliding into his pocket with practiced familiarity. No, you may not. Just drive. The Bentley glided through Chicago's empty streets, a shadow moving through shadows. Maxwell stared out the window, jaw tense. Westridge Avenue belonged to a part of the city he hadn't visited in decades. The part good fortune had allowed him to escape. Sir, Vincent broke the silence as they turned onto a street lined with crumbling brick buildings. At least let me accompany you inside. This area has the highest crime rate in the district. Maxwell didn't answer. The car stopped before a 5-story walk-up, its facade peeling like dead skin. A flickering streetlight cast sickly yellow patches across broken concrete steps. Wait here, he ordered, stepping out into the cold night air. The building's entryway reeked of urine and boiled cabbage, graffiti-decorated walls that hadn't seen fresh paint in decades. The elevator bore an out-of-order sign that looked permanent. Maxwell took the stairs, his Italian leather shoes incongruous against the stained concrete. 3rd floor, apartment C. The door was slightly ajar, a thin slice of dim light spilling into the hallway. Maxwell knocked 3 firm taps. Lily, it's Maxwell Blackwood. You called me about your mother. Silence followed, then a small voice from behind the door. How do I know it's really you? Despite everything, Maxwell felt his lips twitch. Even terrified, the child was cautious. Because you told me your address is apartment 3C, 1458 Westridge Avenue, and that your mother is very cold. The door opened slowly. Standing before him was a tiny figure in a faded pink nightgown, her dark hair tangled around a face too thin for her age. Large brown eyes, red-rimmed from crying, stared up at him with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. What struck Maxwell wasn't just her smallness, but the bruise. A yellowing mark on her upper arm partially hidden by her sleeve. Old, not from tonight. The kind of mark that told stories no child should have to tell. "Where is your mother?" he asked gently, kneeling to her level. Lily pointed toward the small living room where a woman lay motionless on a threadbare rug. Maxwell moved quickly, checking for a pulse. It was there, faint but steady. The woman's face was pale as paper framed by hair, the same dark shade as her daughter's. She couldn't have been more than 35, but exhaustion had etched premature lines around her eyes and mouth. "She came home from work and just fell," Lily whispered, her small hand clutching Maxwell's sleeve. "She works 2 jobs. Sometimes she doesn't eat, so I can." The simple statement hit Maxwell like a physical blow. He looked around the apartment, taking in the sparse furnishings, the carefully mended curtains, the refrigerator humming loudly in the kitchenette. Through an open door, he glimpsed a bedroom with 2 mattresses on the floor, neatly made with mismatched sheets. Poverty, but poverty worn with dignity. Nothing was dirty. Nothing was broken beyond what couldn't be helped. This was a home maintained with fierce pride despite impossible circumstances. "She needs medical attention," Maxwell said, pulling out his phone. "I'm going to call an ambulance." "No." Lily's eyes widened with fresh fear. "Please, no hospitals. Mommy says we can't afford it. Last time she was sick, the bills took all our savings. She lost her job at the hotel because she missed too many days." Maxwell hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. The child was right. An emergency room visit would likely devastate whatever precarious financial stability they had managed to achieve. "I know someone who can help," he said finally. "A doctor who won't charge. But we need to take your mother to her. Will you trust me, Lily?" The girl studied him with eyes too old for her face. Then, with a solemnity that tightened Maxwell's chest, she nodded. "I knew you would come. I saw you in my dream." Maxwell froze. "What dream?" "The dream where a girl with yellow hair told me to call for help. She said someone would answer. Someone who needed to find us as much as we needed to be found." A chill that had nothing to do with the apartment's inadequate heating swept through Maxwell. Emma had had blonde hair, sun-colored he used to call it. He pushed the thought away, focusing on practicalities. "We need to get your mother to the car. What's her name?" "Sarah. Sarah Williams. I'm Lily Williams." Maxwell lifted Sarah's limp form. She weighed almost nothing in his arms, another testament to the meal's sacrifice for her daughter. Lily followed close behind, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit and a small backpack she'd quickly filled with what appeared to be her mother's medication and a change of clothes for them both. The practicality of a child forced to grow up too soon. Vincent's eyes widened when he saw Maxwell emerging with an unconscious woman and a child, but he asked no questions as he opened the car door. "Dr. Kim's clinic," Maxwell instructed. "Call ahead. Tell her it's urgent." The Bentley pulled away from the curb, leaving Westridge Avenue behind. In the back seat, Lily sat close to her mother, her small hand never leaving Sarah's. Occasionally, her gaze would drift to Maxwell, watching him with that unnerving intensity. "You're very rich, aren't you?" she finally asked. Maxwell looked at her, surprised by the directness. "Yes." "Then why are you so sad?" The question landed like a physical blow. Maxwell turned to the window, watching the city transform from crumbling desperation to manicured opulence as they headed toward the Gold Coast. "What makes you think I'm sad?" Lily shrugged one small shoulder. "Your eyes look like Mommy's when she thinks I'm asleep, like you're carrying something very heavy that you can't put down." The private clinic occupied an unmarked building in one of Chicago's wealthiest neighborhoods. Dr. Helen Kim had once been one of the city's most prominent emergency physicians until a lawsuit from a powerful family had derailed her career. Maxwell, recognizing both talent and injustice, had set her up with a private practice that catered exclusively to his employees and associates, and occasionally cases like this. Dr. Kim asked no questions when they arrived, merely gestured for the unconscious woman to be brought inside. Her clinical efficiency was one of the things Maxwell valued most. Severe malnutrition and exhaustion, she announced after a thorough examination. Her body simply shut down. I'm starting fluids and nutrients. She'll need rest, proper nutrition, and follow-up care, but there's no permanent damage. How long until she wakes up? Hours possibly. Her body is taking what it needs. Throughout the examination, Lily had refused to leave her mother's side. Now as Sarah lay connected to an IV in a private room, the child's eyelids were beginning to droop despite her obvious determination to stay awake. Maxwell pulled a chair beside the bed. You should sleep, Lily. I'll watch over your mother. Promise you won't leave. The fear in her voice was palpable. I promise. Lily climbed onto the chair next to him, her tiny body curling up like a cat. Within minutes, her breathing deepened into sleep. Maxwell found himself studying her face, the bruise on her arm, the way her hand remained stretched toward her mother even in sleep. Vincent, he called softly. His security chief appeared in the doorway. I need information. Everything you can find on Sarah and Lily Williams. Current employment, financial situation, medical history, and I want to know how they got that address. Vincent nodded in understanding the unspoken concern. People in Maxwell's position had enemies. A mysterious call in the middle of the night could be the beginning of something sinister. And Vincent, find out if there's a father in the picture. I want to know about that bruise on the girl's arm. As Vincent departed, Maxwell settled back in his chair. The silver watch weighed in his pocket, a constant reminder of time-lost promises. Broken, he pulled it out, thumb tracing the intricate engraving on its lid. To Daddy, all my love, Emma. Maxwell had planned to be at Emma's school concert that day, had promised. But an emergency board meeting had come up, acquisition paperwork that couldn't wait. He'd called to tell her he'd be late, that he'd try to make it for the finale. She'd been so brave about her disappointment. Then the crash happened. A truck driver falling asleep at the wheel. Emma trapped in the mangled car with her mother. While Maxwell argued with shareholders, his daughter had called him bleeding and frightened. He hadn't answered. By the time he checked his messages and raced to the hospital, it was too late. 3:42 p.m., the moment the doctors pronounced her dead. Maxwell closed his eyes, the familiar pain washing over him. When he opened them again, he found Lily watching him, those two old eyes seeing far too much. That's a pretty watch, she said softly. It was a gift from my daughter. Where is she now? The direct question from a child left no room for evasion. She died 6 years ago. Lily nodded as if confirming something she already knew. The girl in my dream had a watch like that. She said it was important. Maxwell's throat tightened. Before he could respond, Vincent reappeared at the door, gesturing for him to step outside. Sir, we have preliminary information, Vincent said once they were in the hallway. Sarah Williams, age 34, single mother, works as a cleaning staff at Blackwood Tower during the day and waitressing at night. No criminal record. Excellent employee reviews. Maxwell frowned. She works for us. Third-party cleaning service. She wouldn't be directly on our payroll. The daughter, Lily Williams, age 6, enrolled at West Ridge Elementary. Above average student despite frequent absences. And the father, Vincent's expression darkened. Robert Foster, released from prison 3 months ago after serving 4 years for domestic violence and assault. He put Ms. Williams in the hospital twice before she finally pressed charges. There's a restraining order, but he's violated it before. Maxwell's jaw tightened. The bruise on Lily's arm predates Foster's incarceration according to medical records. But there are multiple documented incidents. Where is he now? Unknown. He missed his last 2 parole appointments. Maxwell processed this information, pieces falling into place. Continue monitoring. I want to know the moment he surfaces. When he returned to the room, Lily had fallen asleep again, this time with her head against his chair. Maxwell gently lifted her onto the small sofa against the wall, covering her with his suit jacket. It dwarfed her, another reminder of how small, how vulnerable she was. As dawn broke over Chicago, Sarah Williams began to stir. Her eyelids fluttered, consciousness returning gradually. Maxwell watched as confusion gave way to panic when she realized she was in an unfamiliar place. Her eyes darted around the room until they found Lily asleep on the sofa. Only then did some of the tension leave her body. Then she saw Maxwell, and fear returned tenfold. Who are you? Her voice was hoarse but held an undercurrent of steel. Even weakened, she was ready to fight if necessary. Where are we? My name is Maxwell Blackwood. Your daughter called me when you collapsed. This is a private medical clinic where you've been receiving treatment for severe malnutrition and exhaustion. Sarah struggled to sit up. How did Lily call you? I don't understand. She was trying to dial 911. She reached my private line instead. Sarah's gaze sharpened, recognition dawning. Blackwood, as in Blackwood Enterprises, the tower downtown. Maxwell nodded. You work there, I understand, on the cleaning staff. Her face flushed, whether from embarrassment or fever he couldn't tell. Why would someone like you come personally in the middle of the night? You could have just called an ambulance. Maxwell considered how much to say, how much this woman with fierce eyes and defensive posture could understand about the ghost that drove him. Your daughter was frightened. She needed help. He paused. I lost my own daughter years ago. I wasn't there when she called. I couldn't make that mistake again. Something in Sarah's expression shifted, the wariness tempered by unexpected understanding. Before she could respond, Dr. Kim entered the room. Ms. Williams, I'm Dr. Kim. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck, Sarah admitted, but better than last night. Dr. Kim checked the IV and Sarah's vitals, her movements efficient. You collapsed from severe malnutrition and exhaustion. Your body simply couldn't continue. You need rest, proper nutrition, and follow-up care. I'd recommend at least a week off work. Panic flashed across Sarah's face. A week? I can't. I'll lose both jobs. We can't afford that. Mom. Lily's voice came from the sofa, small and worried. She scrambled up, the oversized suit jacket falling away as she rushed to her mother's side. You're awake. Crane's entire demeanor transformed, softening as she embraced her daughter. I'm okay, sweetheart. I'm so sorry I scared you. I knew you'd be okay, Mr. Blackwood promised. Sarah looked over her daughter's head at Maxwell, questions in her eyes. Questions and growing suspicion. Lily, honey, how about you go with Dr. Kim to get some breakfast while I talk to Mr. Blackwood? Kim took her cue perfectly. We have excellent pancakes in our break room. Would you like to see? Lily looked reluctant until Sarah nodded reassuringly. Once they had left, Sarah turned to Maxwell, all pretense of weakness gone despite the IV in her arm. I appreciate what you've done, Mr. Blackwood, truly, but I need to understand why. People like you don't just swoop in to help people like us without a reason. Sometimes a child's call for help is reason enough. Not in my experience. Her voice held years of hard lessons, especially not from men with power. So I'll ask again, what do you want? The directness was refreshing after years of navigating the veiled language of corporate politics. Maxwell decided to match her honesty. 6 years ago, my daughter Emma was in a car crash with my wife. While I was in a board meeting, Emma called my private line. She was frightened alone, trapped in the car. I didn't answer. By the time I checked my messages and reached the hospital, she was gone. The words felt like gravel in his throat. Last night, when I heard your daughter's voice on that same line, I couldn't ignore it. Not again. Sarah's expression softened fractionally. I'm sorry about your daughter, truly, but that doesn't explain why you're still here. You could have dropped us at the hospital and walked away with a clear conscience. The bruise on Lily's arm explains why I'm still here. Sarah stiffened instinctively, pulling the blanket higher. That's from before. Her father is in prison. Was in prison, Maxwell corrected quietly. Robert Foster was released 3 months ago. He's missed his last 2 parole appointments. The color drained from Sarah's face, fear replacing defiance. How do you know that? I had my security chief run a background check. Standard procedure when I'm dealing with an unexpected situation. He found us. It wasn't a question, but a horrified realization. Somehow he found us again. You've been hiding from him. Sarah nodded, one hand absently rubbing her forearm, where Maxwell suspected she carried her own scars. When he was sentenced, I took Lily and moved. Changed our phone number. I've been careful. So careful. The restraining order is just paper. Bitterness edged her words. It didn't stop him the first 2 times he put me in the hospital. It won't stop him now. Maxwell's mind worked rapidly, assessing threats and solutions like the strategist he was. You need a secure location until we can determine if he's actively looking for you. I have a property where you and Lily can stay temporarily. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Why would you do that? You don't know us. We're nothing to you. Perhaps I'm trying to make amends for a call I didn't answer. Or perhaps you have other motives. The suspicion returned. I've learned to be careful around powerful men offering help, Mr. Blackwood. Maxwell didn't flinch from her scrutiny. Your caution is understandable. But right now you have limited options. You need rest. Your daughter needs safety. I can provide both no strings attached. There are always strings. Then consider it in advance. You work for a company contracted by Blackwood Enterprises. Consider this an employee benefit. Sarah clearly wasn't convinced, but practicality was winning over suspicion. For how long? Until you're recovered and we can ensure Foster isn't a threat. Dr. Kim returned with Lily, who was happily finishing a stack of pancakes. The child looked between the adults, sensing tension. Are you mad at Mr. Blackwood, Mommy? He saved us. Sarah softened immediately. No, sweetheart. We're just discussing what happens next. Can we go home now? Before Sarah could answer, Maxwell's phone buzzed. He stepped away to take the call, Vincent's voice tight with urgency. Sir, we may have a situation. Security cameras picked up someone watching Ms. Williams's apartment building this morning. Male matches Foster's description from his prison release photos. He was parked across the street for nearly an hour before leaving. Maxwell's decision was immediate. Increased security at the lake house. Full protocol. Already done, sir. Also, there's something else you should know. Foster was recently employed by Reeves Industries. Maxwell went still. Victor Reeves, his oldest rival and most dangerous enemy. The man who had nearly destroyed Blackwood Enterprises during Maxwell's darkest days after Emma's death. How recently? Hired 3 weeks ago as a security consultant. No prior experience in the field. The implications were clear. This wasn't random. Foster working for Reeves, Sarah working in the Blackwood Tower, Lily's call reaching his private line. Keep digging, I want everything. Maxwell ended the call and turned back to find Sarah watching him intently. Bad news, she asked. Maxwell made his decision. Robert Foster was seen watching your apartment building this morning. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, eyes darting to Lily, who was now examining the medical equipment with childish curiosity. We can't go back there, she whispered. No, you can't. My offer stands, a secure location protection for you and Lily until we sort this out. Sarah closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, the calculation was clear. A mother weighing risks, choosing the lesser danger for her child. We'll come with you, but only until I'm back on my feet. Then we find our own way. Maxwell nodded, respecting her terms while knowing the situation was far more complex than she realized. If Victor Reeves was involved, this was more than an abusive ex-husband. This was calculated. This was a move in a game that had been playing out for years. A game that had already cost him everything once before. As they prepared to leave the clinic, Maxwell watched Lily carefully fold his suit jacket, her movements precise and respectful despite her age. When she handed it back, her fingers brushed against his small and trusting. Thank you for answering when I called, she said simply. Maxwell felt something crack inside him, a fissure in the ice that had encased his heart for 6 long years. He knelt to her level, meeting those old soul eyes. I promise you, Lily Williams, as long as I'm alive, I will always answer when you call. He didn't understand why the words came so easily, or why they felt like a vow more binding than any corporate contract he'd ever signed. All he knew was that somehow in the space of one night, this child and her fierce mother had breached defenses he'd thought impenetrable. And somewhere in a corner of his mind, he rarely visited anymore. He could almost hear Emma's voice approving. The lake house stood like a fortress of glass and stone on the shores of Lake Michigan, 30 miles north of Chicago. Built as a weekend retreat, Maxwell had transformed it into a secure compound after Emma's death, a place where the world couldn't reach him when the penthouse felt too exposed. As the Bentley wound up the private drive, Maxwell watched Sarah and Lily take in their surroundings. The dense trees, the wrought iron gates, the discreet security cameras tracking their approach. Sarah's expression remained guarded, but Lily pressed her face to the window, eyes wide at the glimpse of water beyond the house. Is that the ocean? She asked. Lake Michigan, Maxwell answered. One of the Great Lakes. It looks like it goes forever. Sometimes it feels that way. The house revealed itself as they rounded the final curve. 3 stories of modern architecture, walls of glass facing the Waterstone, anchoring it to the cliff. A team of staff stood waiting at the entrance, faces professional, but curiosity evident in their eyes. Maxwell rarely brought guests here and never a child. Miss Harriet will show you to your rooms, Maxwell explained as they entered the soaring main hall. She manages the household. Anything you need, just ask her. Ms. Harriet, a dignified woman in her 60s who had served the Blackwood family for decades, stepped forward with a warm smile for Lily. I've prepared the blue suite. It has a lovely view of the lake. Sarah clutched her small bag of belongings, looking painfully out of place among the museum-quality artwork and custom furniture. This is too much. We don't belong here. You do for now, Maxwell said firmly. Please get settled. Rest. We'll talk more later. He retreated to his study, needing distance to process the rapid chain of events. Within minutes, Vincent called with updates. Foster has disappeared again. No sign of him at his registered address or at Reeves Industries. But we found something interesting in his employment file. He previously worked for Sentinel Insurance. Maxwell's grip on the phone tightened. When 6 years ago, he was a claims investigator assigned to automobile accidents, including potentially the accident that killed Emma and Catherine. The pieces were starting to form a pattern Maxwell didn't like. Sir, Vincent continued. There's something else. According to building security logs, Sarah Williams was assigned to clean the executive floor last Tuesday. Specifically your office. The implication hung in the air. Access to his private space. Potentially access to his private phone number. Are you suggesting she planned this, that the call was a setup? I'm presenting facts, sir. The timing is concerning. Foster gets hired by Reeves. Williams gets assigned to your office. Then her daughter somehow dials your private number by accident. Maxwell looked out the window toward the lake, its surface shimmering in the afternoon sun. The same lake he and Catherine had once sailed on summers ago. The same waters Emma had learned to swim in. Continue surveillance on Foster and get me everything on Sarah Williams, every address, every connection. I need to know if she's a victim or a pawn. After ending the call, Maxwell found himself walking down the hallway toward the east wing. He stopped before a door he rarely opened anymore. Emma's room at the lake house preserved exactly as she'd left it. Colorful drawings taped to the walls, stuffed animals arranged on the window seat, a child's record player with her favorite stories. He pushed the door open, the familiar ache settling in his chest. The room smelled of disuse despite the regular cleaning. The life had gone out of it just as it had gone out of his heart. Is this her room? Maxwell turned sharply. Lily stood in the hallway, small and solemn, in her borrowed clothes too large for her thin frame. Yes, he answered simply. Emma's room. Lily approached carefully, looking to him for permission before stepping inside. She moved through the space with reverent curiosity, examining the books, the toys, the photographs. She had yellow hair, Lily observed, stopping before a framed photo of Emma at the piano, Catherine's hands guiding hers over the keys. Like in my dream. Maxwell should have been uncomfortable with her presence here. This was his sanctuary of grief, the one place he kept private, yet somehow watching Lily gently touch Emma's possessions felt right in a way he couldn't articulate. She liked music, Lily said, fingers hovering over the small piano keyboard in the corner. She did. She was learning to play. Can I try? The question caught him off guard. You want to play the piano? Lily nodded, a hint of longing in her eyes. I hear it sometimes when we pass the music store. It sounds like what happy would sound like if it was a sound. Maxwell hesitated only briefly before nodding. Lily climbed onto the bench, her feet dangling well above the floor. She pressed one key, then another, delighted by the clear tones. May I show you something? Maxwell asked, sitting beside her on the bench. When she nodded, he placed his hands on the keys and began to play. A simple melody, the lullaby he used to play for Emma. Lily watched transfixed. When he finished, she placed her small hand on top of his. That made your sad go away for a minute. Maxwell looked down at her, this child who saw too much, who somehow found her way to his private number on the very night he most needed to remember what it meant to help someone. Would you like me to teach you? Lily's smile was like sunrise breaking through clouds. Yes, please. They remained at the piano, Maxwell showing her simple notes, Lily's delight at each successful sound healing, something he'd thought beyond repair. He didn't notice Sarah standing in the doorway until Lily called out to her. "Mommy, look, Mr. Blackwood is teaching me piano." Sarah's expression was complex. Gratitude warred with concern, suspicion with something softer. She looked rested, the shadows beneath her eyes less pronounced after a few hours of proper sleep. "That's wonderful, sweetheart," she said. "But Mr. Blackwood is probably very busy. We shouldn't take up his time." Actually, Maxwell found himself saying, "I was enjoying it." Their eyes met over Lily's head, an unspoken communication passing between them. Sarah still didn't trust him completely, but she was beginning to see beyond the powerful CEO to the broken father beneath. "Dinner will be ready soon," Maxwell continued. "Perhaps afterward we could talk. There are some things you should know about your situation." Sarah's guard returned instantly. "What things? Information about Robert Foster, and why I believe his reappearance in your life may not be coincidental." Fear flickered in her eyes, followed by determination. "Lily, why don't you go wash up for dinner? I need to speak with Mr. Blackwood alone." Once Lily had left, reluctantly releasing the piano keys, Sarah stepped fully into the room. Her gaze swept over Emma's possessions, understanding dawning. "You kept it all, exactly as it was. I couldn't bear to change it." Sarah nodded as if this confirmed something important. "What do you know about Robert that I don't?" "He's working for Victor Reeves, a man who has been trying to destroy me for nearly a decade. And you think that's connected to us somehow? That's ridiculous. Robert is just an abusive ex-husband. He doesn't move in your circles. He worked for the insurance company that handled my family's accident claim. The timing is too perfect to be coincidence." Sarah shook her head. "You're seeing conspiracies where there's just bad luck. Robert found us because I wasn't careful enough. It has nothing to do with you or your business rivals." "Then explain how Lily dialed my private number, a number only 5 people in the world possess." Sarah hesitated, uncertainty crossing her features. "I don't know, it was a mistake. A random sequence of numbers." "There's no such thing as random in my world, Ms. Williams. Not when Victor Reeves is involved." Before Sarah could argue further, Maxwell's phone buzzed. "Vincent again." "We found something, sir. The phone Lily used to call you. It was a prepaid cell not registered to Sarah Williams. According to the logs, it was purchased 3 days ago at a convenience store near their apartment." "By whom?" "The store camera shows a man matching Foster's description." Maxwell ended the call, meeting Sarah's increasingly worried gaze. "The phone Lily called me on. When did you get it?" "What I didn't. We use my cell phone. It's the only one we have. Lily used a prepaid phone to call me, one purchased by Robert Foster 3 days ago." Sarah's face paled. "That's impossible. Lily wouldn't hide something like that from me. Unless she didn't know. Unless someone gave her a phone and it told her it was yours, for emergencies." Realization dawned in Sarah's eyes, followed by horror. "Someone's been talking to my daughter without my knowledge, planning this." Maxwell nodded grimly. "It appears so, which means you and Lily aren't just running from an abusive ex-husband anymore. You're pawns in a much more dangerous game." Sarah sank onto Emma's bed, the implications overwhelming her. "Why, what could Robert or this Reeves person possibly want with us? We have nothing." "Access," Maxwell said simply. "To me, to Blackwood Enterprises, through you. I'm just a cleaning woman who was specifically assigned to my office the week before this happened." Sarah buried her face in her hands, shoulders trembling with suppressed emotion. When she looked up again, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "All these years I've been running, trying to keep Lily safe. And now you're telling me we've been manipulated into some corporate war we know nothing about." Maxwell knelt before her, meeting her gaze directly. "I believe so. But now you have something Robert and Reeves didn't count on." "What's that, me?" The word emerged with quiet intensity. "I protect what's mine, Miss Williams. And for better or worse, by involving you in this scheme, they've made you my responsibility." "We're not yours," Sarah said, but the protest lacked conviction. "Perhaps not, but Emma would have wanted me to help you. And for the first time in 6 years, I can hear her voice again." Sarah studied him, seeming to look past the powerful CEO to the grieving father beneath. "You really believe this is all connected, don't you? Your daughter's death, Robert, this man, Reeves Lily's phone call. I do. Then God help us all, she whispered. Because Robert Foster isn't just abusive, he's obsessive. And if he's decided Lily and I are his ticket to whatever revenge or payoff he's seeking, he won't stop until he has us, or until someone stops him. The weight of her words settled between them, heavy with implication and unspoken fears. Outside the lake stretched endless and dark as evening fell, its waters hiding depths few ever truly understood, just like the situation they now found themselves in. Maxwell stood, decision made. Then we make sure he's stopped. Permanently. For the first time since they'd met, Sarah didn't argue or question his motives. She simply nodded, the fierce protectiveness of a mother overtaking all other concerns. Whatever it takes, she agreed. For Lily. As if summoned by her name, Lily appeared in the doorway, hair damp from washing up, wearing a sweater Ms. Harriet must have found for her. Too large but clean and warm. Dinner's ready, she announced, then paused, sensing the tension. Is everything okay? Sarah forced a smile, standing to take her daughter's hand. Everything's fine, sweetheart. Mr. Blackwood and I were just talking about grown-up things. Lily looked between them, that unnerving perception in her eyes again. You're going to help us with the bad man, aren't you, Mr. Blackwood? Maxwell didn't insult her intelligence by pretending not to understand. Yes, Lily, I'm going to help keep you and your mother safe. The child nodded solemnly. I knew you would. The girl with the yellow hair said so. As they walked toward the dining room, Maxwell felt the weight of the silver watch in his pocket. For 6 years, it had been a reminder of failure, of loss, of a call unanswered. Now perhaps it was becoming something else. A connection between past and present. A chance for redemption. A fateful call that this time he had answered. Morning light spilled across the lake house, painting the stone walls in warm gold. Maxwell stood at the kitchen island, reviewing security reports while the coffee machine hummed. Outside Lake Michigan stretched like glass, the horizon merging seamlessly with the pale sky. 3 days had passed since he'd brought Sarah and Lily to the sanctuary. 3 days of cautious coexistence, of questions accumulating faster than answers. You're up early, Maxwell turned to find Sarah in the doorway. The borrowed clothes still hung loose on her frame, but color had returned to her face. Rest and proper nutrition were working their restorative magic. I rarely sleep past 5, he replied, offering her a cup of coffee. Old habits. She accepted with a small nod of thanks. Military, how did you know the way you stand? My uncle was Marines. Same posture, like there's an invisible drill sergeant watching. Maxwell allowed a faint smile. Army, Special Forces, lifetime ago. Before you became king of Chicago's business world. Something like that. They stood in companionable silence, watching the lake through the wall of windows. Morning sunlight caught the water, transforming it into a field of diamonds. Lily slept through the night, Sarah said finally. First time in months, no nightmares. Maxwell nodded, understanding the significance. Children who had witnessed violence carried it in their sleep where defenses couldn't protect them. She likes it here, Sarah continued, her tone, suggesting she was working through something complex. Yesterday, she asked if we could stay forever. And what did you tell her? Sarah's fingers tightened around her mug. That nothing is forever, that we need to be ready to stand on our own. A difficult lesson for a child. But necessary. The world isn't kind to those who depend too much on others. The words held the weight of hard-earned wisdom. Maxwell studied her profile, wondering what battles she'd fought before Robert Foster entered her life. Some dependencies aren't weaknesses, he said quietly. They're alliances. Sarah met his gaze, something unreadable flickering in her eyes. Is that what you're offering, an alliance? Before Maxwell could answer, his phone vibrated. Vincent's name flashed on the screen. Excuse me, he said, stepping away to take the call. What have you found? Sir, we've confirmed Foster's connection to the accident. He was the claims investigator assigned to your case, but his name was removed from the final reports. According to a former colleague, Foster was pulled off the case suddenly with no explanation. By whom? The order came from the senior VP of claims, a man named Gregory Sinclair. Maxwell's blood went cold. Sinclair worked for Reeves before joining Sentinel Insurance. Yes, sir, and there's more. Foster accessed the police reports, the crash scene photos, everything. If there was evidence of tampering with the vehicle, he would have seen it. Maxwell's free hand curled into a fist and buried it on Reeves' orders. It appears so, but without the original files, we can't prove anything. Where would those files be now? Sentinel's archive facility in Milwaukee, but accessing them would require corporate authorization. Maxwell's mind raced through possibilities, discarding those too risky or too slow. What about Sarah Williams? Any connection to Foster before their marriage? Nothing we can find. By all accounts, they met at a bar in 2015, married 6 months later. No mutual friends, no overlapping work history. In her employment at the building, she was hired by Clean Sweep Services 8 months ago. Standard background check, nothing flagged. Her assignment to the executive floor does appear suspicious, though. She was moved from her regular position with no explanation. By whom? The shift supervisor, Maria Diaz. We're looking into her now. Maxwell ended the call, turning to find Sarah watching him intently, her expression guarded. More conspiracy theories, she asked, but the edge in her voice had softened. Facts, he corrected. Robert Foster was the insurance investigator assigned to my family's accident. He was removed from the case by an executive with ties to Victor Reeves. Sarah set down her coffee cup, the implications registering. You think he covered up evidence that the crash wasn't an accident? I think it's a possibility we need to consider. She shook her head, struggling to align this information with her understanding of her ex-husband. Robert was cruel, controlling, violent. But insurance fraud, corporate espionage, that's not his style. Perhaps he was just a tool, someone who could be manipulated through the right incentives. Money, Sarah said flatly. It was always about money with him. That's why he kept coming after me even after the divorce. He was convinced I was hiding assets. Maxwell leaned against the counter, watching her process this new reality. There's something else. Your assignment to clean the executive floor at Blackwood Tower was irregular. Someone arranged it specifically. Sarah's head snapped up, indignation flashing in her eyes. Are you suggesting I was part of this, that I knew? No, I believe you were positioned without your knowledge. A pawn moved into place. To what end? What could I possibly have accessed in your office that would be worth all this? My private contact information, security protocols, perhaps files left on my desk. Maxwell's expression darkened. Or they were setting you up to take the fall for something more significant. The possibility hung in the air between them, ominous in its implications. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking fragile despite her fierce independence. So I was never going to escape him, she whispered. Even with the restraining order, even moving across the city, changing our routines. He was always going to find us. Not just find you, use you. A small sound from the doorway drew their attention. Lily stood there in her borrowed nightgown, hair tousled from sleep, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Mommy, are you talking about the bad man? Sarah immediately moved to her daughter, kneeling to her level. It's nothing for you to worry about, sweetheart. Grown-up talk. Lily's gaze shifted to Maxwell, her eyes too knowing for her years. Is he coming here to the lake house? No, Maxwell said firmly. This place is secure. No one can get in without permission. Promise. The simple question carried the weight of a child's complete trust. Maxwell crossed to her, kneeling beside Sarah. I promise, Lily. You're safe here. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded solemnly. Can we have pancakes, Ms. Harriet said, maybe today. The abrupt change of subject, so typical of children, broke the tension. Sarah smoothed Lily's hair, visibly relieved to return to normal concerns. Pancakes sound wonderful. Why don't you help me make them? As Sarah gathered ingredients from the well-stocked pantry, Maxwell watched the domestic scene unfold with an odd sense of displacement. For years, this kitchen had been a sterile space used only when absolutely necessary. Now it filled with the sounds of whisking batter, of Lily's questions, of Sarah's patient answers. His phone buzzed again. A text from Vincent. Need to meet. New information. Critical. Maxwell slipped away, the warmth of the kitchen scene following him like a ghost. In his study, Vincent waited, face grave. Sir, we've identified Maria Diaz's connection. She's Foster's cousin. Changed her name after a divorce, which is why it didn't flag in our initial search. Maxwell absorbed this, another piece of the puzzle sliding into place. So Foster had his cousin position Sarah to access my office. Yes, sir, and there's more. Building security logged an unauthorized access to your office the night before the Williams incident. Someone used a cleaning crew keycard at 3:17 a.m. No alarm was triggered because the credentials were valid. Sarah's credentials. Yes, sir. But according to her time card, she clocked out at midnight and didn't return until her regular shift the next day. Someone stole her access card, Vincent nodded, and returned it before she noticed. We're reviewing security footage now, but there's a 30-minute gap in the executive floor cameras that night. Routine maintenance, supposedly. Nothing routine about it, Maxwell said grimly. What was taken? That's just it, sir. As far as we can tell, nothing. No files are missing. Your safe wasn't tampered with. Whatever they were after, it wasn't physical. Maxwell's mind raced through possibilities. Or they didn't find what they were looking for. There's one more thing, sir. Lily Williams' school records. There's an incident report from 3 weeks ago. She told a teacher that a man who looked like her father was watching her during recess. The school called Sarah, but when they checked, no one was there. Foster was surveilling her before making contact, Maxwell concluded, testing boundaries, security protocols. If I may speak freely, sir. When Maxwell nodded, Vincent continued, this is escalating beyond a simple harassment case. If Reeves is behind this using Foster as his instrument, then Ms. Williams and her daughter are in significant danger. I'm aware. Then you should also be aware that our investigation into Reeves has attracted attention. My sources indicate his security team has increased activity. They know we're looking. Maxwell moved to the window, gazing out at the lake where a boat cut a white trail across the blue surface. Then we accelerate. I want those accident files from Sentinel Insurance, whatever it takes. Sir, without corporate authorization. Find another way. Bribe a clerk. Hack their system. I don't care how it's done. Vincent hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the directive. That would be illegal, sir. Maxwell turned, his expression hardening. 6 years ago, I played by the rules. I trusted the system, and I lost everything that mattered. I won't make that mistake again. Understood, sir. Vincent's face revealed nothing of his thoughts. There's one other option we haven't discussed, taking this to the authorities. With what evidence, suspicions, coincidences, Reeves is too well connected. By the time we navigated the bureaucracy, it would be too late. Too late for what exactly? Both men turned to find Sarah in the doorway, her expression a mixture of concern and wariness. Ms. Williams, Vincent acknowledged with a nod. I sent Lily to help Mrs. Harriet in the garden, Sarah said, stepping into the room. I think it's time you told me exactly what's happening. All of it. Maxwell hesitated, measuring how much truth she could handle against the risk of frightening her into running. Sarah sensed his calculation. Don't, she said sharply, don't edit for my benefit. My daughter is involved in this. I need to know everything. Maxwell exchanged a glance with Vincent, then nodded. Very well. Please sit down. Sarah perched on the edge of a leather chair, tension evident in every line of her body. 6 years ago, my wife Catherine and daughter Emma were killed in what was officially ruled an accident. A truck hit their car on Lakeshore Drive, pushing it through the guardrail into the water. Maxwell kept his voice clinical, detached, though the pain still clawed at him with every word. The driver claimed his brakes failed. The investigation supported his story. But you believe otherwise, Sarah prompted when he paused. I was in shock at the time, grief-stricken. I accepted the official version because challenging it wouldn't bring them back. His jaw tightened. It wasn't until later, when I began to recover, that I noticed discrepancies in the reports. Missing witness statements, incomplete brake testing on the truck. Vincent picked up the thread. The timing was also suspicious. The accident occurred 3 days before a critical board vote that would have consolidated Mr. Blackwood's control of the company. In his absence, several board members aligned with Victor Reeves nearly succeeded in a takeover attempt. Sarah's brow furrowed. You're saying this man Reeves had your family killed to take over your company? I'm saying he may have seen an opportunity in tragedy, Maxwell replied carefully, or created the tragedy to serve his purposes. And Robert, where does he fit? As the insurance investigator, he would have been among the first to examine the evidence. If there was any indication of tampering with the vehicle, he would have seen it. Understanding dawned in Sarah's eyes, and buried it for Reeves. We believe so, But without the original files, we can't prove it. Sarah leaned forward, processing this information. So this isn't about Robert wanting me back. This is about silencing me, making sure I don't somehow expose what he did 6 years ago. Perhaps, or using you to access new information. Your placement in my office, Lily's call to my private wing, it's too coordinated to be coincidence. But why now? After 6 years, Vincent cleared his throat. 3 months ago, Mr. Blackwood announced the acquisition of Syntech Industries. The deal would effectively block Reeves from the government contracts he's been pursuing for years. So this is corporate warfare, Sarah said, disgust evident in her tone. And somehow my daughter and I got caught in the crossfire. Not by accident, Maxwell corrected. By design. Your history with Foster made you vulnerable. Your economic situation made you ideal, desperate enough to need the cleaning job, a job unable to afford security cameras or alarm systems for your apartment. Sarah stood abruptly, anger flashing in her eyes. So I'm just a convenient victim. Is that supposed to make me feel better about being used as a pawn in your billionaire chess game? No, Maxwell said quietly. It's supposed to help you understand the gravity of the situation. This isn't just about Robert Foster being an abusive ex-husband. This is about Victor Reeves eliminating obstacles. By any means necessary. The implication hung in the air, heavy and ominous. Sarah's anger faltered, replaced by dawning fear. You think he would hurt Lily to get to me, to get to you? Maxwell didn't soften the truth. I think he's already demonstrated his willingness to harm children to achieve his goals. Sarah sank back into the chair, color draining from her face. Oh God. Which is why you'll remain here under protection until this is resolved, Maxwell continued. The lake house has state-of-the-art security. My team is investigating every angle. We will find the evidence we need. And then what? Sarah looked up, her voice steadying. You turn it over to the police, have Robert arrested. What happens to Reeves? Justice happens, Maxwell said, his tone leaving no doubt about his definition of the term. Sarah studied him, seeing beyond the polished exterior to something harder, more dangerous. The Special Forces soldiers still live beneath the corporate titan's skin. You're not just protecting us out of the goodness of your heart, she said slowly. We're bait, aren't they? You want Foster or Reeves to make a move so you can catch them. Vincent shifted uncomfortably, but Maxwell held her gaze. I want them to know their plan failed, that you and Lily are under my protection, that access to me now comes at a price they can't afford. And if they decide we're more valuable eliminated than protected, then they'll learn why challenging me is a terminal mistake. The cold certainty in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, Sarah felt an unexpected sense of security, not the false safety of restraining orders or promises from overworked police officers. This was the protection of a man with resources, power, and the will to use them. I should find Lily, she said after a moment. Make sure she's okay. Maxwell nodded, watching her leave before turning back to Vincent. Double the perimeter security and get me those files from Sentinel. Today. Outside, the lake glittered innocently in the morning sun, hiding its depths beneath a calm surface. Just like the danger surrounding them, beautiful and deadly in its deception. Hours later, Maxwell found Lily in Emma's room, sitting at the small desk with colored pencils spread around her. She was drawing intently, her tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. What are you creating? He asked, keeping his voice gentle to avoid startling her. Lily looked up, eyes brightening at his presence. A map for the treasure hunt. Treasure hunt for Emma. She turned the paper to show him. It was a childish but remarkably accurate rendering of the lake house and grounds with an X marked near the water. She said there's something important buried there, something you need to find. Maxwell felt that now familiar chill that accompanied Lily's mentions of his daughter. When did Emma tell you this? In my dream last night. She said it would help you remember the truth. Maxwell knelt beside the desk, studying the drawing more closely. The marked location corresponded to a small cove on the property, a place where he and Catherine had often sat in the evenings, where Emma had collected shells and smooth stones. What kind of treasure? He asked carefully. Lily shrugged. She didn't say, just that it was important and you forgot about it. She tilted her head, studying him with those unnervingly perceptive eyes. Are you afraid of finding it? The question struck with unexpected precision. Was he afraid? Had he deliberately avoided searching too deeply into the accident because uncovering the truth would force him to act on it? Sometimes, he admitted, finding things we've lost can be painful. Lily nodded solemnly. Emma said you might say that. She said to tell you that not knowing hurts more. Maxwell's throat tightened. It sounded exactly like something his daughter would say. Emma had always been direct, even at 7, cutting through adult evasions with childlike clarity. Will you help me look for this treasure? He asked, surprised by his own question. Lily's face lit up. Can we go now? I already asked Mommy if I could go outside with you, and she said it was okay as long as we stayed where she could see us from the kitchen. The specificity of the permission made Maxwell smile despite the weight of the conversation. Sarah was clearly adapting to their strange new reality while maintaining her maternal vigilance. Let's go then. They walked together through the house and out onto the broad stone terrace. The gardener was trimming hedges near the house while 2 security personnel maintained a discreet presence at the property perimeter. Sarah watched from the kitchen window, giving Lily a small wave when she looked back. The path to the small cove wound through carefully maintained grounds, past flowering shrubs and ornamental trees. Lily skipped ahead, consulting her hand-drawn map with exaggerated seriousness that reminded Maxwell painfully of Emma. It should be right here, Lily announced when they reached the cove, pointing to a spot near a large boulder. Emma said you used to sit on this rock and tell her stories. Another chill raced down Maxwell's spine. He had indeed shared countless stories with Emma on this very rock, a detail he'd never mentioned to anyone after her death. What exactly are we looking for? He asked, kneeling on the pebbly ground. Something small and silver. Emma said you gave it to her to keep safe. Maxwell's mind raced through possibilities. He'd given Emma many small gifts over the years, but something silver, something hidden here. Then he remembered. The week before the accident, during their last visit to the lake house, he'd given Emma a small silver USB drive on a chain. For safekeeping, he'd told her, making it a game. It contained backup files of a project he was working on, something he'd wanted away from corporate servers. Emma had solemnly promised to hide it somewhere special. He'd completely forgotten about it after her death. The project had proceeded without the backup files, and in his grief, the missing drive had seemed inconsequential. I think I know what it might be, he told Lily, beginning to search the area around the boulder. But I'm not sure exactly where she hid it. Lily joined him, small hands moving stones and digging in the soft earth. They searched in companionable silence for several minutes before Lily let out an excited cry. I found something. She held up a small plastic container, the kind used for protecting matches from moisture. It was caked with dirt, but intact. Maxwell took it with hands that suddenly trembled. Inside was exactly what he'd expected, a small silver USB drive on a delicate chain. But there was something else as well, a folded piece of paper preserved inside the waterproof container. What is it? Lily asked, peering closely. A message, Maxwell said, his voice barely above a whisper. From Emma. He unfolded the paper carefully. In a child's careful handwriting were the words, Daddy, I'm keeping this safe like you asked. I put it in our special place so no one else can find it. Love you forever, Emma. Something broke inside Maxwell's chest, a dam holding back 6 years of grief. He clutched the note, tears he'd refused to shed for years finally escaping. Lily didn't speak, didn't move away. She simply placed her small hand on his arm, offering silent comfort with a wisdom beyond her years. After a moment, Maxwell composed himself, carefully returning the note to the container, but pocketing the USB drive. Thank you, Lily, he said softly. This is very important. Emma said it would help you find the truth. Maxwell nodded, wondering what project files the drive contained that could possibly be connected to the accident. He didn't remember anything particularly sensitive or controversial. As they walked back toward the house, Lily skipping ahead again, Maxwell's phone vibrated. Vincent. Sir, we have a problem. Foster was just spotted at the marina 3 miles from the lake house. He rented a boat 20 minutes ago. Maxwell's blood went cold. He glanced at Lily, then at the vast expanse of the lake. Lock down the property, now, full protocol. Already initiated, sir. Security teams are in position. The boat patrol is intercepting Foster now. Get Ms. Williams and Lily to the safe room. I'll meet you at the security center. He ended the call, forcing a calm expression as he caught up with Lily. Race you back to the house, he suggested, keeping his tone light. Lily grinned immediately, darting ahead. Maxwell kept pace easily, scanning the lake as they ran. In the distance, he could see a motorboat cutting across the water toward the lake house shore. Inside, Sarah met them at the door, her expression tense. What's happening? The security alarms just went off. Precautionary measure, Maxwell said smoothly, though his eyes conveyed the severity of the situation. Vincent will explain everything. He's waiting for you in the hall. Sarah wasn't fooled. Robert, Maxwell nodded once, keeping Lily from seeing his expression. Everything's under control, but I need you and Lily to go with Vincent now. To her credit, Sarah didn't panic. She took Lily's hand, smiling reassuringly at her daughter. Come on, sweetie. We're going to play a little game. What kind of game? Lily asked, excitement overtaking any concern. Hide and seek, Sarah improvised. A special version. Vincent will show us the best hiding place in the whole house. As they followed Vincent toward the reinforced safe room in the lake house's core, Maxwell moved in the opposite direction toward the security center. The screens showed multiple camera feeds: the lake, the grounds, the approaching boat. Status, he demanded of the security operator. Coast Guard has been notified, sir. Our boat team is 2 minutes from intercept. Foster is alone on the vessel. Maxwell studied the feed showing Foster's boat. The man was driving erratically, too fast for the conditions, heading directly for the lake house dock. His behavior seemed desperate, reckless. He armed. Unknown, sir, but we're operating under that assumption. Maxwell made a swift decision. I want to talk to him. When the boat team intercepts, have them bring him to the dock, under guard. The operator looked startled. Where protocol dictates. I know the protocol. I wrote it. Override, authorization Blackwood Alpha 7. Yes, sir. Maxwell watched as the security boat intercepted Foster's vessel, forcing it to slow. Even from the camera's distance, he could see Foster's agitation, his wild gestures. The security team boarded, restraining him efficiently before directing the boat toward the lake house dock. Maxwell exited the security center, moving through the house toward the rear doors leading to the dock. 4 armed security personnel fell into formation around him, despite his lack of explicit instruction. Vincent trained his people well. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the water as Foster's boat, now piloted by a security team member, docked. Robert Foster was secured with zip ties, his expression a mixture of fear and defiance. He was thinner than his prison photos suggested, his once handsome features, haggard eyes bloodshot. Mr. Foster, Maxwell greeted him coldly as security personnel brought him onto the dock. This is private property. You're trespassing. Foster's eyes darted around, taking in the armed guards, the fortress-like house behind them. Where are they? He demanded, voice cracking. What have you done with them? If you're referring to Ms. Williams and her daughter, they're safe, which is more than they were with you. You don't understand, Foster said, struggling against his restraints. You've got it all wrong. I'm not here to hurt them. I'm here to warn them. Maxwell's expression remained impassive. Warn them about what? Reeves, he's going to kill them. Kill all of us. Maxwell studied the man before him, looking for deception. He saw many things in Foster's desperate eyes: fear, certainly, perhaps regret, but not the calculated malice he'd expected. Bring him inside, he ordered the security team. Search him thoroughly, then take him to the study. 20 minutes later, Foster sat in a chair in Maxwell's study, still restrained, but no longer panicking. A security search had found no weapons, only a phone wallet and a USB drive, similar to the one Maxwell had just recovered from the cove. Start talking, Maxwell said without preamble. Why would Reeves want to kill Sarah and Lily? Foster's gaze dropped to his bound hands. Because they can connect him to what happened to your family. And what exactly happened to my family, Mr. Foster? Foster looked up, eyes haunted. It wasn't an accident. The truck's brake lines were cut. I found the evidence during my investigation, but my supervisor buried it. Said it would be better for everyone if it were ruled an accident. Better for everyone or better for Reeves? I didn't know about the connection to Reeves then. I just did what I was told. The driver took the blame. Insurance paid out, case closed. Foster's voice held bitter self-recrimination. I needed that job. I had a gambling problem, debts to the wrong people. My supervisor knew it. Used it against me. Maxwell contained his rage with effort. And Sarah, how does she fit into this? I met her 2 years after the accident. It was real what we had, at least at first. Foster's expression twisted with shame. Then the drinking got worse, the gambling. I started taking it out on her. I'm not making excuses. What I did was unforgivable. Get to the point, Maxwell said coldly. Why is Reeves targeting them now? 3 months ago, Reeves approached me in prison, said he had a job for me when I got out, something that would clear my debts. All I had to do was reconnect with Sarah, get her a job at your building. Foster swallowed hard. I didn't know what he was planning. I swear. I thought it was just corporate espionage, maybe plant some bugs in your office. And Lily, the phone call. That was Reeves' idea. He said it would get your attention, make you emotionally invested. The phone was programmed to call your private line when she dialed 911. Foster leaned forward, desperation in his eyes. But yesterday I overheard Reeves talking to his security chief. He's planning to eliminate all loose ends. That includes Sarah, Lily, and me. Maxwell's mind processed this new information, testing it against what they already knew. It aligned with the evidence but raised new questions. Why come here? Why warn them? Foster's shoulders slumped. Because whatever else I've done, I don't want their deaths on my conscience. I've got enough sins to answer for. And I'm supposed to believe you've developed a conscience after years of abuse and deception. Believe what you want, Foster said tiredly, but Reeves is planning something big. Something at Blackwood Tower using access he gained through Sarah's credentials. That USB has the details, everything I managed to copy from his computer before I realized what he was really planning. Maxwell glanced at the USB drive security had confiscated. And the connection to my family's accident, what proof do you have? It's all there, the original accident report, the brake line analysis that was removed from the final version. Emails between Reeves and my supervisor arranging the cover-up. Foster met Maxwell's gaze directly. I kept copies. Insurance against Reeves ever turning on me. Fat lot of good it did. A knock at the door interrupted them. Vincent entered, his expression grave. Sir, we have a situation. The security system has detected multiple approaching boats. Armed individuals. ETA 4 minutes. Maxwell stood immediately. Lock down the property, full defensive protocol, and get Ms. Williams and Lily to the helicopter. Yes, sir, but there's more. Vincent's gaze flicked to Foster. Chicago police just issued an arrest warrant for Sarah Williams for corporate espionage and theft of proprietary information from Blackwood Enterprises. Foster paled. It's starting. He's framing her, cutting off her options. Maxwell's decision was immediate. Prepare for immediate evacuation, all of us, including Foster. Priority is getting Ms. Williams and Lily to the secondary location. Sir, with all due respect, we can hold this position, Vincent argued. Our security team is outnumbered if Reeves sent his full force. Maxwell cut him off. And I won't risk Sarah and Lily in a firefight. Execute the evacuation plan now. As Vincent left to implement the orders, Maxwell turned back to Foster. If you're lying to me, if this is part of some elaborate trap, I will personally ensure you regret it. Foster nodded, no defiance left in his posture. I know what I've done. I don't expect forgiveness. But Sarah and Lily deserve to be safe. Maxwell studied him a moment longer, then made his decision. Cut him loose. He comes with us. To Foster directly he added, one wrong move, and I won't bother with restraints next time. The evacuation proceeded with military precision. Within minutes, Sarah and Lily were brought from the safe room, Sarah's expression a mixture of fear and determination, Lily clutching her mother's hand and the stuffed rabbit. Sarah faltered when she saw Foster instinctively pulling Lily behind her. What is he doing here? There's no time to explain, Maxwell said, guiding them toward the roof access where a helicopter waited. He's coming with us. I'll explain everything when we're secure. I'm not getting in any helicopter with him, Sarah said firmly, despite the alarms blaring around them. Mom, the bad men are coming, Lily said with surprising calm. We need to go with Mr. Blackwood. He'll protect us. Sarah looked down at her daughter, then back at Maxwell, conflict clear in her eyes. If he tries anything, he won't. Maxwell assured her, the promise carrying unmistakable threat. As they hurried up the stairs to the roof, the security system announced perimeter breach on the lakeside. Reeves's men had landed. The helicopter's rotors were already spinning, the pilot ready for immediate departure. Maxwell helped Sarah and Lily aboard, then turned to Foster, who hesitated at the door. Last chance, Maxwell said. In or out? Foster climbed in without comment, positioning himself as far from Sarah as the confined space allowed. Vincent was the last to board, pulling the door shut as gunfire erupted below. Go out! Maxwell ordered the pilot, who immediately lifted the helicopter into the air. Through the window, Maxwell could see black-clad figures moving across his property, converging on the house. A few shots were fired at the helicopter, but they were already out of effective range. Where are we going? Sarah asked, holding Lily close as the lake house receded beneath them. Somewhere safe, Maxwell answered. Somewhere Reeves won't think to look. As the helicopter banked east, heading out over Lake Michigan, Maxwell finally allowed himself to examine the USB drive he'd recovered from the cove. Emma's final gift to him, preserved for 6 years in their special place. Beside him, Lily watched with those unnervingly knowing eyes. Emma said it would help you find the truth, she said softly, her voice nearly lost in the helicopter's roar. And for the first time in years, Maxwell felt something beyond grief and rage. He felt purpose. Reeves had taken his family, manipulated an innocent woman and child, and now sought to destroy them all. But this time, Maxwell Blackwood wasn't the grieving father caught off guard. This time he was ready. And Victor Reeves was about to learn why that was the most dangerous development of all. Twilight settled over Chicago like a purple bruise, the city's lights blinking to life as darkness claimed the sky. The helicopter soared between skyscrapers, a black silhouette against the fading sun. Inside, tension thickened the air as the 5 passengers processed the rapid escalation of events. Maxwell studied the tactical display on his tablet, watching the tracking signals from the lake house security system. Reeves's men had completely overtaken the property, now searching methodically through every room. The hidden cameras still functioning showed armed personnel combing through his private spaces with military precision. They're looking for something specific, Maxwell observed, eyes narrowed at the footage. The way they're searching this isn't just a capture operation. Vincent nodded in agreement. The USB drives. Both of them. Maxwell's hand closed around the silver drive recovered from Emma's hiding place, while his eyes flicked to the one confiscated from Foster. Whatever is on these is worth killing for. Across from him, Lily nestled against Sarah's side, the child's eyes heavy with exhaustion, but still watchful. The stuffed rabbit remained clutched in her small hands, its worn fur a stark contrast to the helicopter's sleek interior. Where are we going? Sarah asked again, her voice steady despite the circumstances. She had positioned herself between Lily and Foster, her body language unmistakable in its protective intent. A property that isn't connected to Blackwood Enterprises, Maxwell answered. A place Victor Reeves doesn't know about. Foster shifted in his seat, wincing as the motion pulled at his ribs, where security had restrained him earlier. Reeves has resources. He'll be tracking the helicopter. Not this one, Vincent countered. Privately registered to a shell corporation with modified transponders that can broadcast false identification codes. For all tracking purposes, we're a medical transport heading to Milwaukee. Maxwell turned to Sarah, seeing the questions building in her eyes. I know you want explanations. You deserve them. But they'll have to wait until we're secure. Is Robert telling the truth? She asked bluntly, ignoring his attempt to defer the conversation. Was he working with Reeves to set me up? Maxwell studied her face, noting the controlled anger beneath her composed exterior. 6 days ago, she had been a cleaning woman struggling to make ends meet. Now she was at the center of a corporate war, fleeing armed pursuers in a helicopter with her abusive ex-husband and a billionaire CEO. Lesser people would have crumbled under the strain. Yes, he said simply, though his current motivations remained to be verified. Sarah's gaze shifted to Foster, contempt hardening her features. Why drag us into this? Wasn't what you did to us enough? Foster couldn't meet her eyes. I didn't know what Reeves was really planning. I thought it was just corporate espionage, information gathering. And that makes it better? Her voice cut like a blade. You used our daughter, Robert. Used her to manipulate a grieving father. I know. Foster's shoulders hunched inward. There's no excuse. No, there isn't. Sarah turned away from him, effectively ending the conversation. To Maxwell, she said, when we land, I want to know everything. No more partial truths. No more, it's complicated. Lily and I are involved now, whether I like it or not, and I need to understand what we're facing. Maxwell nodded, respecting her demand. You will. I promise. The helicopter banked north, leaving the city behind as they followed the coastline. Below Lake Michigan stretched endlessly, its surface darkening with the night. 20 minutes later, the pilot announced their approach to a clearing, illuminated by ground lights that blinked on as they descended. Welcome to Sanctuary, Maxwell said as they touched down. The property revealed itself as they exited the helicopter, a modernist structure of concrete glass and weathered cedar, nestled against a forested hillside overlooking the lake. Smaller than the lake house, but no less impressive in its design, it emanated the sense of a fortress disguised as a retreat. This place doesn't officially exist, Vincent explained as he led them inside. No property records, no utility connections under any names that could be traced. Self-sufficient power and water systems. A panic room on steroids, Foster muttered. A contingency, Maxwell corrected. One I hope never to need. The interior was Spartan, but comfortable. Minimal furniture, practical layouts, reinforced doors and windows. Everything designed for security without sacrificing livability. Sarah, there's a bedroom prepared for you and Lily through there. Maxwell indicated a hallway. Everything you might need should be provided, but if not, just ask. Sarah nodded, exhaustion finally showing in the slump of her shoulders. Come on, Lily, let's get you ready for bed. What about the bad men? Lily asked, her voice small but surprisingly steady. Will they find us here too? Maxwell knelt to her level, meeting her eyes directly. No, Lily. This place is special. It's hidden in a way they can't trace. Like a secret fort. Exactly like that, the best secret fort ever built. This seemed to satisfy her. With a solemn nod that mimicked his own, she followed her mother down the hallway, the stuffed rabbit dangling from her hand. Once they were out of earshot, Maxwell turned to Foster, all pretense of gentleness evaporating. Now, everything you know about Reeves's operation. Start with the USB drive. Foster sank onto a chair, the weight of years of bad decisions evident in the slump of his shoulders. It contains evidence of everything. The accident that killed your family wasn't just a cover-up of vehicle tampering. It was part of a larger operation. What kind of operation? Reeves has been siphoning funds from government contracts for years. Defense projects, infrastructure, security systems. He builds in cost overruns, then funnels the excess through shell companies back to his private accounts. But he needed access to certain banking codes to expand the operation. Codes only you had as CEO of Blackwood Enterprises. The banking portal credentials. Maxwell realized pieces falling into place. That's what they were after in my office. Foster nodded. Reeves thought if he could get access through Sarah's cleaning credentials, he could plant software to capture your keystrokes the next time you logged in. When that failed, he escalated to Plan B. Using Lily to manipulate me emotionally, to get close enough to gain access another way. Yes, but something changed after Sarah and Lily moved to the lake house. Reeves became paranoid, convinced you were onto him. That's when I heard him talking about eliminating loose ends. Maxwell paced the room, processing this information. The timing aligns with our investigation into the Sentinel insurance files. He must have sources inside my organization warning him that we were digging. You have a leak, Foster agreed. Someone high enough to know what you're looking for. Vincent, who had been silently monitoring security systems from a tablet, looked up sharply. The board member, Mitchell, he was asking unusual questions about your interest in the old accident files. Maxwell's expression hardened. He and Reeves have a connection through the Chicago Economic Club. Put him under surveillance immediately. As Vincent moved away to make arrangements, Maxwell returned his attention to Foster. You said the evidence of the original accident is on this drive. Foster nodded. Everything. The brake line analysis proving tampering. Witness statements that were excluded from the final report. Email exchanges between Reeves and my supervisor orchestrating the cover-up. He hesitated, then added, and the name of the technician who actually did the sabotage. A direct connection to Reeves. Maxwell's voice was deadly quiet, enough to bring him down. If you can authenticate it, if you can prove chain of custody, if you can get it to authorities before Reeves eliminates everyone who knows about it. Foster's tone was bleak. He has people everywhere. Police, FBI, financial regulators. Not everywhere, Maxwell countered. And corruption leaves traces paper trails, no matter how careful he's been. He connected both USB drives to a secure, isolated laptop, its systems protected from external networks. As the files loaded, Maxwell felt a strange sense of completion, as if pieces of a puzzle separated for years were finally coming together. The first drive, the one Foster had brought, contained exactly what he'd described: detailed documentation of the accident investigation, including the suppressed evidence of tampering, names, dates, technical specifications, a comprehensive paper trail leading directly to Victor Reeves. The second drive, Emma's drive, was something else entirely. It contained financial records, transfers between offshore accounts, project codes for defense contracts, lists of shell companies and their beneficial owners. Information Maxwell had backed up as insurance against corporate espionage, never imagining its true significance. My God, he breathed, scanning the data. Emma's drive. It has the financial evidence that connects to Reeves' embezzlement scheme, the links between the shell companies and the defense contracts. How is that possible? Vincent asked, looking over his shoulder. 6 years ago, I was conducting an internal audit of our defense division. I found irregularities in some joint ventures with Reeves Industries, but couldn't prove anything conclusive. I backed up the raw data as insurance. Maxwell shook his head, the irony bitter on his tongue. I gave it to Emma to hide because I thought it would be safer outside corporate servers. Then after she died, I forgot about it completely. Reeves killed your family to prevent you from exposing his scheme, Vincent concluded, but he never knew about the backup data. No one did, except Emma. Maxwell's throat tightened. She kept it safe all these years. And somehow Lily knew where to find it, Foster said, the skepticism in his voice clear. Maxwell glanced toward the hallway where Sarah and Lily had gone. Perhaps not everything in this world can be explained by logic, Mr. Foster. The sound of approaching footsteps ended the conversation. Sarah returned, her face, freshly washed, hair pulled back. She'd changed into provided clothes, simple jeans, and a sweater that hung slightly loose on her frame. Lily's asleep, she announced. Finally, now I want those explanations you promised. Maxwell gestured to the screen. We have the evidence, all of it. Reeves orchestrated the accident that killed my family to prevent me from discovering his embezzlement scheme. Then he manipulated Foster into positioning you to unwittingly help him gain access to banking credentials he needed. Sarah absorbed this, her expression tightening. So my daughter and I are collateral damage in a billionaire's financial crimes. Wonderful. She turned to Foster. And you, what was your price for helping him target us? Foster couldn't meet her gaze. Money, clearing my gambling debts, a position in his company. Was it worth it? The question hung in the air, sharp as broken glass. No, Foster whispered. Nothing could be worth this. Sarah's contempt was palpable, but she redirected her attention to Maxwell. What now? We have the evidence. We turn it over to the authorities, right? It's not that simple, Maxwell replied. As Foster mentioned, Reeves has influence in law enforcement. If we move too quickly or approach the wrong people, the evidence could disappear, and so could we. Then what's your plan? Two-pronged approach. First, secure copies of this evidence with trusted third parties, my attorneys, independent media, and specific FBI agents I know to be uncorrupted. Second, leverage the evidence to force Reeves into the open. Force him how? Sarah asked, wariness creeping into her tone. By making him think we're vulnerable, that we're making a mistake he can exploit. Understanding dawned in her eyes. You want to use us as bait. Controlled exposure, Maxwell corrected. A scenario where Reeves believes he has the upper hand while we control all variables. That's insane, Foster interjected. Reeves isn't just some corporate raider. He has ex-military contractors on his payroll. People who don't ask questions before pulling triggers. So do I, Maxwell said coldly. The difference is mine are still bound by principles. Sarah crossed her arms, studying Maxwell with new intensity. This isn't just about justice for you, is it? This is personal. Vengeance. Justice and vengeance aren't always separate concepts, Maxwell replied. But my priority is ensuring your safety and Reeves' permanent removal as a threat. If that aligns with personal satisfaction, I won't apologize for it. Sarah held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded once. I want Lily completely protected. Non-negotiable. Agreed. She stays here under Vincent's protection while we execute the plan. We, Sarah's eyebrow rose. You're including me in this operation? It won't work without you, Maxwell said simply. Reeves needs to believe he still has a chance to silence you, to recover the evidence. Sarah paced the room, processing the implications. And what about him? She jerked her head toward Foster. Where does he fit in this plan? Maxwell's gaze shifted to Foster, assessment in his eyes. He's our verification, proof that Reeves orchestrated everything. His testimony corroborates the digital evidence. Foster straightened slightly, surprise evident in his posture. You're giving me a chance to make this right. I'm using you to achieve justice, Maxwell corrected. Your redemption is your own concern. A notification chimed on Vincent's tablet, drawing everyone's attention. The lake house is clear, he reported. Reeves's team has withdrawn, and they left something behind. He turned the screen to show security footage of the main living room. On the coffee table sat a single white envelope. A message, Maxwell surmised. He knows I have remote monitoring. He wants me to see this. It could be rigged, Vincent warned. Explosives, toxins. Or it could be exactly what it appears, a communication. Send in the security drone to examine it. Minutes later, the drone's camera showed the contents of the envelope, a single photograph. Emma, 6 years earlier, smiling at the camera. On the back, handwritten text, she called for you. You didn't answer. Will history repeat? Maxwell's face hardened into a mask of controlled rage. He's trying to provoke an emotional response. Make me careless. He's also telling us he knows about Lily's call, Sarah added, voice tight. That he orchestrated it to parallel Emma's final call to you. The psychological warfare of a desperate man, Maxwell said dismissively, though the message had struck deeper than he cared to admit. This confirms he doesn't know where we are. Otherwise, he wouldn't resort to such tactics. Vincent received another alert, his expression growing grave. Sir, Chicago PD just raided your penthouse with a warrant. They're also at Ms. Williams's former apartment. The official charge is corporate espionage, but they're treating it like a terrorism investigation. Maximum force. Reeves is using his law enforcement connections to flush us out, Maxwell concluded. Standard procedure would be to issue a bolo for my vehicles, monitor airports and train stations. What about Lily's school? Sarah asked suddenly. Would they watch there? Almost certainly, Vincent confirmed. Standard protocol for fugitive parents. Sarah's hands clenched at her sides. This is insane. 24 hours ago, I was worried about making rent. Now I'm a fugitive. A falsely accused fugitive, Maxwell corrected, with powerful allies. Forgive me if that doesn't provide much comfort right now. Sarah ran a hand through her hair, frustration evident. You have a plan to use us as bait. Fine. But I want details, contingencies, exactly how you intend to protect my daughter if things go wrong. Maxwell studied her, respect deepening for this woman who had survived Robert Foster's abuse, years of poverty, and now faced a billionaire's vengeance with unflinching resolve. Let me show you, he said, leading her to a secured room deeper in the house. The tactical center was smaller than the one at the lake house, but equally advanced. Multiple screens showed security feeds mapping systems and communication channels. A weapons locker stood against one wall, its contents visible through reinforced glass. This facility was designed for worst-case scenarios, Maxwell explained. The entire structure is reinforced concrete with impact-resistant windows, security systems with redundant power, enough supplies for months. If necessary, Lily could remain here indefinitely, completely secure while we execute the operation. Sarah took in the military-grade preparations with wide eyes. You built a fortress in the middle of nowhere. You've been preparing for something like this for years. Since Emma and Catherine died, Maxwell acknowledged. Once I began to suspect the accident was deliberate, I knew Reeves might eventually target me directly. I wanted to be ready. And now we're benefiting from your paranoia, Sarah observed, but without judgment. Preparation, he corrected. There's a difference. Sarah approached one of the monitors showing the sleeping quarters. Lily was visible on the screen, curled around her stuffed rabbit face, peaceful in sleep. What exactly do you need me to do? She asked quietly. In this plan of yours. Make contact with Reeves. Pretend you're willing to trade the evidence for your and Lily's safety. Set up a meeting. While wearing a wire, I assume. So you can record his confession. Maxwell nodded. Among other technological assists, yes. And when he realizes it's a trap, because he will, by then it won't matter. We'll have everything we need to ensure his prosecution, and you'll be extracted before he can react. Sarah turned to face him directly. What if I said no? What if I took Lily and disappeared instead? You have your evidence now. You don't actually need us anymore. Maxwell had anticipated this question. You could try, but Reeves would never stop looking. Men like him don't leave loose ends. The only way to truly protect Lily is to remove the threat permanently, by putting myself in danger first. Sarah's tone was flat, not a question, but a statement of understanding. By helping me bring him to justice, Maxwell corrected, after which you and Lily can have whatever life you choose. New identities if necessary, financial security, a fresh start. Sarah's laugh held no humor. A happy ending purchased with blood money. Justice isn't always clean, Maxwell acknowledged, but it's preferable to living in fear. She was silent for a long moment, watching Lily's sleeping form on the monitor. When at 2 days, we need time to prepare, position, our forces distribute insurance copies of the evidence. Sarah nodded, decision made. 2 days, and then I help you destroy the man who turned my life into collateral damage. Maxwell recognized the steel in her voice, the same uncompromising determination that had allowed her to survive Robert Foster, to protect Lily through years of hardship, to stand now in the center of a billionaire's war without breaking. The following morning, Vincent's urgent knock roused Maxwell from his desk, where he'd spent the night analyzing the evidence. Sir, we have a situation. Vincent's voice was tight. Reeves is moving faster than anticipated. He's called a press conference for noon today. The news screen showed Victor Reeves, 62, silver-haired, impeccably groomed, standing before a forest of microphones. His expression conveyed grave concern as he addressed the reporters. Deeply troubled by Mr. Blackwood's increasingly erratic behavior, we believe he has become dangerously fixated on a conspiracy theory involving my company in a tragic accident from 6 years ago. Now he's abducted an innocent woman and her child. I implore Maxwell, if you're watching, let these people go. Get the help you need. Maxwell's expression remained impassive, though his eyes hardened. He's trying to control the narrative, paint me as unstable before we can present our evidence. Sarah stood in the doorway, her face pale as she watched the broadcast. He seems so convincing. Men like Reeves always do, Maxwell replied. That's how they survive. Vincent nodded grimly. There's more. We've intercepted communications between Reeves's security team and someone inside the Chicago PD. They've identified Foster's boat rental and are focusing their search on the Northern Lake region. They're getting close, Maxwell observed. We need to accelerate our timeline. I'm ready, Sarah said, her voice steadier than he expected. Let's not give him time to prepare further. Maxwell studied her, noting the determination that had replaced yesterday's uncertainty. Are you certain? Once we start this, there's no turning back. Sarah's gaze drifted to the monitor, showing Lily still asleep. I've spent years running from Robert, living in fear. I won't spend the rest of my life running from Reeves, too. The plan came together with military precision over the next few hours. Foster would make contact first, claiming to have vital information about Sarah's whereabouts. His conversation with Reeves would be recorded, establishing motive and connection to the accident. Sarah would follow, wearing a sophisticated recording device disguised as jewelry offering to trade Emma's USB drive for her and Lily's safety. Remember, Maxwell instructed, as Vincent fitted Sarah with the device. Your only goal is to get Reeves talking about the accident, about Foster's role, about his plans for you and Lily. Nothing else. Sarah nodded, fingering the silver watch now hanging from a chain around her neck. Emma's watch. And you'll be where exactly? Nearby with a tactical team. The moment we have what we need, we extract you. And if something goes wrong, Maxwell met her gaze directly. Nothing will go wrong. But they both knew that wasn't an answer. Foster departed first, tension evident in every line of his body as he was escorted to the boat that would take him back to the mainland. His wire was state-of-the-art, undetectable by standard sweeps. Don't try to be a hero, Maxwell warned him before he left. Get what we need and get out. Foster nodded grimly. For what it's worth, Blackwood, I never wanted anyone to die. Not your family, not Sarah, not Lily. Intentions mean very little in the face of consequences, Mr. Foster. But today you have a chance to choose different actions. After Foster's departure, Sarah changed into the blue dress that had been waiting in the closet. It fit perfectly as if tailored specifically for her. The silver watch gleamed against the fabric, its hands still frozen at 3:42. "You know this is crazy, right?" she said as they prepared to leave, trusting the direction of a 6-year-old who thinks she's talking to a ghost. Maxwell's expression remained serious. "I've learned to trust instincts that can't be easily explained." And Lily knew things she couldn't possibly know. Sarah smoothed the dress, looking uncomfortable in its simple elegance. "I feel like I'm wearing a shroud." "You're wearing armor," Maxwell corrected, "and carrying truth." The meeting location was a private dining room at the Lakeview Hotel Neutral Ground in the heart of Chicago's financial district. Foster had successfully made contact, convincing Reeves that he had vital information about Sarah's whereabouts, and more importantly about Emma's USB drive, which Reeves now knew existed. Maxwell monitored the operation from a suite 2 floors above, surrounded by screens showing security camera feeds and vital sign monitors for both Foster and Sarah. "Foster's in position," Vincent reported, listening through an earpiece. "Reeves has agreed to meet. 2 security personnel with him, standard suite for recording devices. And the FBI team." "Standing by, sir. Agent Rollins is personally supervising." Maxwell nodded, satisfied. James Rollins was one of the few federal agents he trusted implicitly, a man whose integrity had cost him promotions, but earned him respect. "Sir," Vincent said, suddenly, tension in his voice. "Foster's audio just went offline." Maxwell's head snapped up. "What? How? Unknown." Signal terminated abruptly. "Get it back. Now." Vincent worked frantically at his equipment. No response. Either the device failed or they found it, Maxwell finished grimly. Status on Sarah. Still en route 3 minutes out. Maxwell made a swift decision. Abort. Pull Sarah back. If they've made Foster, this is compromised. But before Vincent could relay the order, the door to their suite burst open. 2 men in tactical gear entered, weapons raised. Behind them stood a familiar figure, Harold Mitchell, the board member Maxwell had suspected of leaking information. "I'm afraid Miss Williams will be keeping her appointment," Mitchell said smoothly, "though you won't be monitoring it as planned." Maxwell's mind raced through options, calculating angles, distances, probabilities. "Mitchell, I always suspected you were ambitious. I didn't realize you were corrupt." Mitchell smiled thinly. "Not corrupt, Maxwell, practical. Victor offered me something you never could, a chance to step out of your shadow. By helping him murder my family, by targeting an innocent woman and her child." "Unfortunate collateral damage," Mitchell acknowledged without remorse. "But that's business." "Sir," Vincent murmured, his hand sliding imperceptibly toward his concealed weapon. "Sarah's almost at the hotel." Maxwell met his security chief's eyes briefly, a silent communication passing between them. "You won't get away with this, Mitchell. The evidence is already secure, distributed to multiple sources." Mitchell shrugged. "Perhaps, but without witnesses to authenticate it, it's just data. Fabricated data, as our experts will testify." The tension in the room was razor sharp, each man calculating his next move. Then Vincent's phone buzzed, once, twice, a pattern that made his eyes widen fractionally. "What is it?" Mitchell demanded. "Security alert from the other team?" Vincent lied smoothly. "Routine check-in." Maxwell felt a flicker of hope. That wasn't a security alert. It was the signal that Lily, guided by Emma's instructions, had activated the secondary protocol. The contingency he'd quietly put in place while Sarah slept. "It doesn't matter," Mitchell said dismissively. "Ms. Williams is walking into a controlled situation. Foster has already provided a full confession about how he helped Blackwood fabricate evidence against Victor, how Blackwood's obsession with avenging his family led him to kidnap Sarah and her daughter." "Foster would never," Maxwell began, then understood. "You've replaced him." Mitchell smiled. "Technology is remarkable these days. Voice duplication, digital manipulation. By the time Ms. Williams realizes she's talking to an imposter, it will be too late." Maxwell's jaw tightened. Every instinct screamed at him to act, to fight his way out, to reach Sarah before she entered the trap. But he forced himself to remain calm, to trust in the contingency plan now in motion. "You've underestimated her," Maxwell said quietly. Sarah Williams has survived worse than Victor Reeves. Mitchell laughed. A cleaning woman versus one of the most powerful men in Chicago? I don't think so. That's your mistake, Mitchell. You see titles, not people. The hotel dining room gleamed with subtle opulence as Sarah was escorted inside. The maitre d' led her to a private area where Victor Reeves waited dressed in an impeccable suit that probably cost more than she had earned in a year. Ms. Williams, he greeted her, rising with practiced courtesy. Thank you for agreeing to meet. Please sit down. Sarah remained standing, her hand unconsciously touching the silver watch at her throat. Where's Robert? Mr. Foster has been detained temporarily, a precaution given his history of violence toward you. That's considerate, Sarah said, sarcasm edging her words. Almost believable. Reeves smiled, the expression not reaching his eyes. You're direct. I appreciate that. So let me be direct as well. I understand you have something that belongs to me. I have evidence of what you did. To the Blackwoods, to us. What I did, Reeves spread his hands in a gesture of innocence. Ms. Williams, you've been manipulated by a man consumed by grief and delusion. Maxwell Blackwood has spent 6 years trying to blame someone, anyone, for the tragic accident that claimed his family. It wasn't an accident, Sarah said flatly. The brake lines were cut. On your orders. For the briefest moment, something cold flickered in Reeves' eyes before his mask of concern returned. These are serious accusations. Based on what fabricated documents, the word of an abusive ex-husband looking to reduce his sentence, or perhaps the ravings of a man who kidnapped you and your daughter. Based on evidence Maxwell forgot he had, evidence his daughter kept safe. Reeves's composure slipped slightly. What evidence? Sarah touched the watch again. Everything. Financial records, transfer details, communications about the accident. I see. Reeves leaned back, studying her with new intensity. And what exactly do you want, Ms. Williams? Money, a new life somewhere far away. I want my daughter to be safe. I want to stop running. Understandable desires. Reeves nodded sympathetically. And easily arranged. For the right exchange, of course. Sarah held his gaze. I have conditions. I need to know exactly what happened. Why the Blackwoods had to die. Why my daughter and I became targets. Reeves considered her for a long moment, calculation evident in his eyes. Finally, he nodded. Very well, a reasonable request before we conclude our business. As Reeves began to speak, Sarah felt the watch grow warm against her skin. A subtle vibration, almost imperceptible, told her the device was working, capturing every word, every inflection. Catherine and Emma Blackwood were unfortunate necessities. Reeves explained, his voice clinically detached. Maxwell was close to uncovering a financial structure I'd spent years building. Defense contracts, government infrastructure projects, all with built-in margins that flowed through carefully constructed channels. You had them killed over money. Sarah's disgust was evident. Reeves frowned at her tone. Over billions, Ms. Williams. Over power. Over a lifetime of work that Blackwood was prepared to dismantle because of his rigid ethical standards. The accident was regrettable but essential. Foster's role in covering up the evidence was merely good fortune. A man with gambling debts is always useful. And us. Why target Lily and me? Another opportunity. Reeves shrugged. When Foster mentioned his connection to you, I recognized potential leverage. Maxwell Blackwood had withdrawn from the world after his family's death, focused solely on business. I needed him distracted, emotionally compromised, while I completed my largest acquisition. Your daughter's call was designed to reawaken his grief, make him vulnerable. You used a child to manipulate a grieving father. Sarah said, her voice tight with controlled rage. Business requires difficult decisions, Reeves replied dismissively. Now about the evidence, where is it? Sarah touched the silver watch. Right here, Emma's final gift to her father. Reeves's eyes narrowed on the timepiece. Hand it over, carefully. And then what? You let me walk away? We both know that won't happen. A cold smile spread across Reeves' face. Perceptive. Unfortunately, you have learned too much to... The dining room doors burst open. Not security forces or police, but a slender woman in a designer suit flanked by camera operators and reporters. Victor, she called brightly, striding confidently into the room. Sorry to interrupt your lunch, but you did promise an exclusive after your press conference. Reeves' face contorted with fury and confusion. What is the meaning of this? How did you get in here? The woman Diane Reynolds, Chicago's most prominent investigative journalist, smiled with predatory satisfaction. Your assistant called to confirm. Is this a bad time? Her eyes shifted meaningfully to Sarah, to the watch, and back to Reeves. Understanding dawned on Reeves' face, followed by cold fury. This is a private meeting. Leave now or I'll have security remove you. Reynolds was undeterred. Before I go, I just wanted to verify some fascinating financial records my team has been analyzing. Transfers between Sentinel Insurance and offshore accounts registered to shell companies that seemed connected to Reeves Industries. Care to comment? The blood drained from Reeves's face as he realized what had happened. The trap wasn't for Sarah, it was for him. The evidence was already out, already being investigated. This interview is over, he snarled, rising abruptly. He gestured to his security personnel, who moved toward Reynolds and her team. I wouldn't, came a new voice from the doorway. Agent James Rollins stood there, FBI credentials displayed. The lady's with me, and so is Ms. Williams. His gaze shifted to Sarah. Are you all right, ma'am? Sarah nodded, relief washing over her. Yes, I got what we needed. Reeves's face contorted with rage. This is absurd. You have no jurisdiction here, no warrant. Actually, Rollins smiled thinly. We have both, along with Mr. Foster's very detailed testimony provided an hour ago at our field office. Quite the story he had to tell. Foster is, Reeves stopped abruptly, realizing he'd been outmaneuvered. Alive and cooperative, Rollins finished for him. Turns out your associates aren't as thorough as you thought, or perhaps they're not as loyal. Reynolds' camera crew had been filming the entire exchange, capturing Reeves' reaction for millions of viewers. The trap was incomplete. Reeves caught between federal agents with evidence and media witnesses to ensure nothing disappeared. Victor Reeves, Rollins said formally, you're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and suspicion of involvement in the deaths of Catherine and Emma Blackwood. As the agents moved to restrain Reeves, Sarah stepped forward, her voice clear in the sudden silence. This is for Lily and for Emma. 2 hours later, Sarah sat in Rollins' office at the Federal Building, watching the operation unfold on multiple screens. Coordinated raids at Reeves's offices, his home, the homes of key associates, including Harold Mitchell. The evidence from both USB drives, combined with Foster's testimony and Reeves's unwitting confession, had provided everything needed for the most extensive corporate fraud case in Chicago's history. Where's Maxwell? She asked, finally turning to Vincent, who stood nearby. Being treated for a minor injury. Mitchell's men weren't gentle, but he's okay. Vincent nodded. More than okay, triumphant. The door opened and Maxwell entered. A bruise darkened his jaw and his left arm was bandaged, but his eyes burned with an intensity Sarah hadn't seen before. It worked, he said, simply, crossing to her. Every piece. Just as Emma, he glanced at Vincent, amended his words, just as planned. Sarah stood, suddenly aware that her hands were shaking. The adrenaline that had carried her through the confrontation with Reeves was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Lily, is she safe, still at Sanctuary? We can bring her to the city when you're ready. Sarah nodded, relief making her lightheaded. It's really over. Reeves is in custody. His organization is being dismantled as we speak. The evidence is irrefutable. Maxwell's voice softened. You were extraordinary today. I was terrified, Sarah admitted, but also, I don't know, it felt right facing him, after everything he'd done to us. Justice often does. A comfortable silence fell between them both, processing the events that had brought them to this moment. Finally, Sarah voiced the question that had been building since the operation began. What happens now to us, I mean? Lily and me. Maxwell had clearly anticipated the question. Whatever you want. New identities if you prefer. Financial security either way. A new start anywhere in the world. And what about you? Sarah asked quietly. Maxwell looked momentarily surprised by the question. I'll rebuild. Restore Blackwood Enterprises to what it should have been, without Reeves's shadow hanging over it. And that's enough. After all this, he considered this, his gaze drifting to the silver watch Sarah still wore. For 6 years, I've lived only to keep Emma's memory alive. Today, with your help, I've done more than remember her. I've honored her. His voice grew softer. That's not the end of healing, but it's a beginning. Sarah touched the watch gently. She helped us, you know. Whether you believe it was really her spirit or just Lily's extraordinary intuition, Emma guided us. Maxwell nodded slowly. I believe some connections transcend what we can explain. He hesitated, then added, which is why I hope you and Lily will consider staying in Chicago. Not hiding, not running, building something new. Sarah studied him, seeing beyond the powerful CEO to the man beneath, scarred, but healing, grieving, but alive. I think Lily would like that. She's grown quite attached to those piano lessons. A smile touched Maxwell's eyes, perhaps the first genuine one she'd seen. And her teacher has grown attached to giving them. Outside the window, Chicago stretched below them, its skyline gleaming in the afternoon sun. The city that had nearly destroyed them both now offered possibilities neither had imagined days earlier. We'll stay, Sarah decided, but on one condition. Name it. No more midnight rescue missions or helicopter escapes, just normal. As normal as possible. Maxwell nodded solemnly, though his eyes held a warmth that transformed his face. I think I can manage that, though my definition of normal might need some adjustment. We'll work on it, Sarah promised, a tentative smile forming. Together. 6 months later, a small gathering assembled on the shore of Lake Michigan, near the spot where Emma's treasure had been buried. The lake house had been rebuilt, its security less obvious but no less effective. Wildflowers bobbed in the gentle breeze as Maxwell stood before a simple stone marker, Sarah and Lily beside him. The silver watch, now repaired and ticking steadily, rested in his palm. Maxwell knelt, placing it gently at the base of the marker that bore Emma's name. You kept it safe until we needed it, he said softly. Now it's time to let it go. Lily stepped forward, placing her small hand on Maxwell's shoulder. She says it's okay now. She's not sad anymore. Sarah watched them, marveling at how life could change so completely. Robert Foster had received a reduced sentence in exchange for his testimony, his cooperation helping to dismantle Reeves's entire network. Victor Reeves himself faced the rest of his life in prison, his empire crumbling around him. And they had found something none of them expected, not a replacement for what was lost, but something new. A family forged through tragedy and resilience rather than blood. Maxwell rose, taking Lily's hand in his right and Sarah's in his left. Ready to go home? Sarah nodded, her eyes reflecting the same peace she saw in his. Behind them, Lake Michigan stretched vast and blue, its surface glittering with possibilities. Ahead lay a future none of them could have imagined that fateful night when a little girl's call had bridged past and present. A future built not on vengeance or fear, but on the rarest and most precious foundation of all, a second chance.